Hey, Nix.
Hey, Scott.
And we're doing patterns.
No, we're not.
Sons of CPA's bonus episode where Nix and Scott share a small but useful piece of practical advice as it relates to running their professional accounting firms. Today's episode is brought to you by the letter P. PTO. I don't know if it's cheating that we're just using the letter P as the P word because it's an acronym, but I guess now we're opening up the door to P-acronyms. PTO, paid time off. I love this topic.
What's
Care
your
to share?
What's your PTO policy?
Unlimited PTO. We have a policy. That's another good P word. But we don't really. Well, I'll get into detail. That's it. I answer that. Unlimited PTO. How about you?
We also have unlimited PTO.
Let's go back out. Why this topic today?
Well, I chose this topic today because I went on vacation for one day. And so recently I've been getting back into doing client work, and I haven't done client work in a long time. And so I'm starting to feel the burn of what the team feels. And I was on vacation with my boyfriend's family in Tahoe. And I started getting text messages from clients and realized, oh my gosh, we don't have a way for our clients to message the team. I'm sure that when our team goes on vacation, they're getting text messages from clients. One, and two, just thinking about because of what we do, and we're always so embedded in our client's business, and there's always payroll that needs to be run and invoicing and cash flow issues, how hard it is for everyone to just go on vacation or check out. It's really challenging. And so how do we structure our teams? What technology do we use? What are our processes so that we can actually allow our team to go on vacation? Because I find it very challenging. So we have this unlimited PTO policy, but I'm trying to encourage people to go on vacation, but they're not going on vacation. And I think that we definitely still have some work to do on our workflows and our technology and our workflow system to allow people to do that. But what we started to do in the meantime is half-day Fridays, because I know that it's harder for people to step away for long periods of time because they're managing this portfolio of clients. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll just give them half-day Fridays so at least they have that time off in these smaller chunks. But with the goal of working toward setting up a system.
You got to phase things in. You got to go in phases too, because you can't just cut off the water while it's flowing. And that's the flowing of communication. You can't cut off the communication because clients will leave. That is why most clients leave, is communication. So this is a very multi-layered topic. I like where you went with it, because I thought this was just going to be about PTO and I was getting kind of bored. But the layers of things that you have to fix and phase in and out are critical, because you don't want to lose context or communication with the client. You got to start with the not always on, right? Like them always being available, because we're living in times now where it's very hard to turn things off if they are on, and that's notifications. Mm-hmm. And we were just talking about that on our team meeting too. If everything is on, it's very hard for you to turn that off. We did half-day Fridays. That was one of the first things we did back when we had an office, and that was great, because it gets people into thinking there is a real weekend, especially if you go from a firm that does taxes over the weekend and people would work on the weekends to not doing anything half days on Fridays. Like, we basically didn't do shit on Fridays. They would come in and wrap a few things up and plan their week for the next week.
Well, that's exactly the point. So I'm like, I'd rather just be efficient and get the work done and then be able to take the half day off, rather than sitting there feeling like you need to be there in case something pops up, because our clients aren't working on Fridays either. So take the half day off. And I know that, like, you guys use Carbon, right, as your workflow tool. And so when your clients send you an email, let's say someone goes out of town, somebody else can see that email, right?
Right.
So we're going to test out Carbon next week.
Was that you dropping the Carbon? Carbon got dropped last night too on the episode I recorded.
I'm ready for Carbon. That's on Ashley.
You definitely want to tell them that I sold you on it, right?
Yes. No, I was just talking to Patrick Cameron too from Aprio, and he was selling me on Carbon. I'm ready.
Do it. Yeah.
But
definitely tell Tim Scott sent you. Do not say Ackerman sent you. I don't want him thinking he's the poster boy of Carbon. He definitely thinks he's the poster boy. He thinks he's closing all these accounts. But let him think that.
So you use Dialpad too. So the hole I found was the text messaging because we use HubSpot for email. Mm-hmm. So we solved that problem. But then I didn't think about the text messaging because clients can still penetrate that way. So how do we fix that problem?
So text messaging is tricky, but because it's Dialpad, they can do it in app. So they can choose to have the notifications on their phone or not. And their phone, I think that most of them use the web browser phone. So, and they use the web for text. So that's just, if you're using that for Dialpad, that's just like email or Slack or something else. Like, you know how a lot of teams set up Slacks for their clients and they Slack them? Same
right.
thing.
But what I realize is the problem is if somebody's on vacation for a week and then they don't have, what I realized was there's an away message you can set up in Dialpad, which I didn't know before last week because I got the text message.
I know. Yeah, that was cool. You told me about that.
I had to respond, right? Because otherwise, let's say if someone's out for a week and they get a text message on Monday and they don't have an away message or somebody else sings that. So the client's just thinking somebody's ignoring them.
Right. So this is relevant to PTO. I was just making sure that we reeled it back in. But I think what we're saying here is when they're off, they're on because you don't have any coverage to overlap them being away for somebody to reach in and respond. And I think Carbon solves a lot of that because if somebody's monitoring the Carbon feed or the client feed or if the triage is reassigned, if an email comes in and it's reassigned or it's sent to a group, like I think you do that in HubSpot anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think for us at least, it's managing expectations of the client too. And if the client knows they're going to be away and you have coverage or somebody else handling the work, then I think like they understand that person is away this week. They told me they were away. Oh, I reached out to them. They didn't respond, but now I remember they told me last week they were going to be away this week. It can wait, whatever it is. Or you have somebody else that's covering it. So I think that's where you have to plan ahead of time and have them plan their trip.
Yeah. And
you plan the coverage for them. And that's where you guys will be able to get out of that hamster wheel, I guess, that you might be in because you can always got to catch up, right? Like when they leave for a while, they got to come back and get the work caught up too.
Right. Yeah. And that's another thing we've talked about before that's important is team structure. So having multiple people on every client or having a project manager that knows what's going on with clients so that it's not all siloed with one person. Because if you have one bookkeeper that manages 30 clients by themselves with nobody else having any context on those clients, there's absolutely no way that person's ever going to be able to go on vacation. So that gets into how you price, right? You have to price knowing that it's not just one person working on this. There's a whole team. There's going to be people moving around. There's a project management aspect of it. And so you have to be able to price that in so that you can allow your team the space to go on vacation.
Yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes into this, and there's a lot of preparation, and there's a lot of proactivity. Allowing them unlimited PTO, I am not monitoring how much they actually take. I don't pay attention to that at all because I think they're all adults. That's not as big of an issue, I think, as it is when we had a team member that I thought was definitely taking advantage of it because she was never working anyway. She was never on. She was always out doing different things and like never putting it on the calendar. So our policy is you've got to put it on the calendar that you're going to be out and just make sure you have some coverage. So it's all self-responsibility. Mark it as PTO. Nobody's checking on you if you're actually working or not, but everybody should know that you're going to be out this day. So we all have shared calendars. We all see who's going to be out and when they're in. So if somebody's not in a meeting, you just look on the calendar and it already says PTO for that day. So somebody wasn't doing that, and it was blatantly obvious.
Well, I think in general, most people probably with unlimited PTO use less PTO.
Yeah.
Right. Rather than if you give someone 5 weeks, they're going to take it all 5 weeks versus unlimited.
Or they take too much.
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do is be like, it's unlimited, but shoot for 4 weeks. And I'd like to get to a point where we're actually tracking that and encouraging people to take time off, because that's what
I think you want to set a high and a low. And I've never said this out loud or discussed this idea, but I think you want to be able to set we have unlimited PTO with an asterisk. You can take this much time off. That's the high margin. If you take more than this, it's got to be a good reason for it, right? Like somebody's got to have a baby or some shit.
Or getting married or something.
Well, married, you don't need to take that much time off to get married. I mean, maybe a month, or I don't know, give or take. If you've been together long enough, then it doesn't fucking matter.
The
it's
wedding
just
and the
day.
honeymoon and the bachelorette party.
But that's such a regular year of trips anyway, I think.
Yeah.
But in this case, this person was getting married, and that was why she was taking so much time off. That's why she was never working.
See, I told you there's a lot of time. That's why I've never getting married. I don't have the time to commit to it.
It's bullshit. So the amount of time that they take off on the high level and on the short end, you don't want them to not take enough because of those other concerns too, that people don't take enough. So you can have like a margin of time that you should be taking and try to hit in the middle of there. Like, we think this is the perfect amount. If we did give you PTO, that's probably what we would do, this many hours. And that's why it's in the middle of the margin. So that's a good policy. I think it's kind of open, but if you take less, you get docked in pay. If you don't take enough, you have to pay back the time that you extra worked.
You owe me. One thing I'm thinking about doing is, I have a couple team members that one of our biggest clients went through due diligence. So they worked a little bit of overtime, and it was just a really heavy lift on them in addition to what they're already doing. So I was trying to think of a way to reward them rather than just giving them a bonus that they have to get taxed on. So I was thinking of just giving them, being like, hey, I'll pay for a weekend, like take a Friday off, a Thursday, Friday, and here's some money to go somewhere with your spouse or something. So trying to think of ways to encourage them to take time off and then give them some kind of tax-free money, because maybe I'll just run it through as a business expense.
I mean, it used to be that we dangled PTO in front of them, as it used to be like for Chris, every time he hit a work anniversary, he would get more PTO added to what he's allowed to take. And that was like incentive. As seniority, you got more PTO. And then introducing the unlimited, it was like, God, is that just like a kind of slap in the face? Like, you have to work really hard to get this much PTO. Are you sure you want to give everybody unlimited? These are things that we used to have to pay attention to. And that was for real. Like, you had to show up to the office this many days a week to be present.
I'm trying to make things more simple, because the more things we add on, it just makes everything more complicated. Adding on the 401k and the Kyocera, and then you add on PTO, and it's just... The more simple, the better.
It also gets a lot more expensive. I looked at how much I pay for insurance now compared to what I used to, and it's not cheap. But these are benefits, right? These are reasons, and I don't realize, I take it for granted that that's a big deal for somebody to work at a job and they pay for your insurance.
Insurance, yes. I would say insurance is the number one most important thing. I feel like when I added the 401k, people didn't care about it.
Nobody gave a shit about 401k.
I wish I would have just ignored the 401k, because it's a pain in the ass.
Well, that is not good for our listeners. Our listeners love saving, and I think so.
But
you should be promoting saving.
Employees come to me and asking for a higher base. They don't even take into account that the 401k was added, and a lot of them don't even contribute their own. I contribute 3%. So I don't think that people... I think people would rather have a higher base salary and health insurance.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, because I have some people who are working and they put they max out their 401k. That is why they're working, is to be able to max out their 401k. So I think it's an age thing as well. And I'm one to talk, because I don't set much aside. I feel like, my business is the equity that I'm saving in my 401k. I'll sell the business, and that's where I'll fund my retirement, which is kind of true.
Yeah,
but employees are different. They don't have that equity. So
right, and it depends on. So some people might, like, we invest in real estate, right? So I may not want to put all my money into my 401k, and some employees do as well. So everyone's in their own personal situation. The benefit is not taxable at that time, unless they do a Roth. But in my experience, I think people care about the base and health insurance first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an interesting point you just made too, like the diversity of real estate and other things. Anybody's interested in learning more about real estate, there's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I keep hearing about. I want to read that book. And then there's the Real Estate CPA podcast,
Yeah.
Brandon. He's actually talking about making an accountants-facing podcast in the third or fourth quarter. That's going to be dope.
Oh, sweet.
So
Ashley
check
used
that
to
out.
work for them, right? My Ashley.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'd love to hear more about that. I want to have him on. He lives near me. He's in Raleigh. So shout out to Brandon Hall. He's got some cool stuff on Twitter. He's been killing it on there. I
like
noticed
his
he's got a really
podcast.
fucking good tweets lately.
I got to get on Twitter.
You do. You get tagged a lot on Twitter too.
I
Shout
do.
out to
I never
Twitter
even go
peeps.
on it.
I know. Like Kenji tags you. I tag you. Yeah, you should. You would love it. There's a bunch of people that are already, on there. I like being on Twitter, but I get consumed by it too sometimes. So I got to get my perspective and focus. So then I dip in and out of like, I don't spend much time on LinkedIn like you do. Let's focus.
I got
Sorry.
a couple more points.
PTO points.
PTO. Okay, so going back to systems or allocating work so that your team can actually take time off. One area where I really feel like it was tying people down is payroll. So when we started doing a lot of payroll services, and Gusto makes this really nice when you can put it on autopilot, but there are certain situations where we're doing work for clients that we can't necessarily put on autopilot, or there's a calculation to put it in there. So what we're doing now is we're segregating that and giving that all to one person, a subcontractor, we're transitioning all of the payroll to that one person. And then if that person's ever out, which hopefully she never is, but if she is, then the team, like the accounting team, already has done that so they can jump in and help. But I'm taking all the payroll away from the accounting team, and everyone is very excited about that. So I highly recommend segregating payroll from accounting. It's a little bit hard if you have a smaller team, but it is one area that ties people down a lot.
Payroll is something that the prior owner of my office didn't want to get into just for that reason, because he always had the mindset of, I'm not working Fridays. I don't want to be tied to Fridays. And that was always payday, right? Like that's why he didn't want to do payroll, because I added ADP on. This was before the days of Zen Payroll or Gusto. I said, let's just do it. Like I want to, like that was a big revenue jump for us. So payroll is a profitable product, but that goes with like I used to take time off, but I would still be doing stuff when I was away. And that's what we're talking about here. Like that's an issue. And I never knew it was. I always said, I'm still with everybody. I'm still like on vacation, kind of. I just have to check in and do this. And now, like I said, I go away. You and I are just like this. We don't even check anything while we're gone, and I think that's a good thing. When I go with my family now, I never check anything and I never feel compelled to. So it's hard for the team.
Yeah, it's hard for the team.
They're used to that.
Right. And then invoicing, I know a lot of firms don't do invoicing. That's one thing that we've been dabbling with and have been doing. And that can also be, payroll and getting paid are the two most important part of the client's business, right? So you definitely don't want to drop the ball on that. So definitely utilizing recurring invoices as much as possible, but then also having people that having the process
AR?
recorded. Yes. Like creating invoices for
that
clients.
That payables, that's a good P word. We can add that to the list too. We can't call it AP, we got to call it payables. Similar to the invoicing, but invoicing is obviously more important.
Way more
that
important.
Keeps money in the door so they can cover payroll, so they can pay your bill, so they can.
Yeah, we've gone deep down this rabbit hole where we were trying to implement payment processors and setting up the invoices and reading the contracts. And we do that for some clients. It's one of the most
You're the queen of bespoke.
Yes, we get what I've always found is like the more of the process that we control, the better things go, especially because we're trying to do things on accrual basis accounting. If the client does the invoicing, they misdate it, they do something, they put it to the wrong service line, it like screws up the financials. So I'm of the opinion that I'd rather just do it.
You're a control freak.
And, well, the team said this too. I don't think that they like being tied down to the invoicing process, but I at one point was like, well, let's not do invoicing. And then I got the feedback of, no, we actually want to control the process because the client's going to do it wrong. So
you got to weigh the benefits of that too, right? And how profitable it is, but then also it's the hidden benefits of doing something and the hidden like disadvantages sometimes too. Like if you stop doing it, then this isn't going to work anymore, or this is going to be more difficult. But that's a valuable service. You're probably charging a decent amount.
Well, we have one client where we set up their entire configured Xero with their T-sheets, and that's an important mapping process that we had to do as part of the onboarding process. And then anytime that they have a new service or a new billable rate, someone has to go in there, set up in Xero, configure it to T-sheets, and then every 2 weeks we're sending that data to ADP to do the payroll, and then sending the data to Xero to set up all the invoices, and then having the client approve the invoices for them to actually get sent out. But I will say that you can't just have anybody do that. You have to have somebody that's very process-minded, set everything up and configure everything, and then hand it off to the team. I don't know that I would offer that service again. I think I would offer, hey, we'll set it up for you as a consulting engagement, but you have to actually do this. But we did take a lot of time off the client's plate.
Yeah. I mean, you got to learn as you go with these things and develop your service line. And I'm just kind of echoing some of our other conversations too. You've got to take on the projects that make sense and then productize them. I just weaved in 2 episodes there. You got to take the projects and you got to productize the projects after you've done them. If you're oh man, I'm trying to weave in another one. I can't do it. I'm not that good.
The other area, so we pretty much tried everything. I've tried everything, and then we'll pull back and be like, ooh, we don't want to do that anymore. But for example, payroll, or now that we're doing payroll, we're trying to figure out what's our responsibility versus the client's responsibility. And we recently had a client that didn't give us updated, health insurance isn't on Gusto. And so we were as part of the accounting process, right? You're tying out the health insurance, the liability of the withholding on the payroll to what was actually paid to the health insurance vendor. And I was reviewing the books and it didn't match. So then we had to go and realize that they went through open enrollment. They didn't tell us. And so that was just a process problem on our part where we didn't have any clients that weren't on Gusto's health insurance or didn't have a good operation person to tell us. So is that our responsibility? Probably. So we need to add that as part of our process to update things. And then 401k has just been a freaking nightmare for anybody that's not on guideline in Gusto. The 401k process is so terrible. I don't understand why it's so bad.
Is that just in this world? Not just guideline, but how we handle that shit.
Guideline has solved that problem, I think, and we want to move the guideline. But I went the whole I wanted to go with an advisor because I've never done this before. And the TPA experience is, they're sending me a bill to pay by a check. You have to do a manual upload, and it doesn't work. And there's somebody trying to show us how to do it. And it's rather than there being instructions, it's just a terrible process. And then all of our clients that have had 401ks also have terrible, terrible experience. So I think Guideline has probably solved this problem, but it surprises me how bad the experience is.
Oh God. Well, it is just kind of archaic how they even work right now. You basically need 2 or 3 levels of people managing this. And what the fuck is the point? I know there's definitely a point, but
it's so confusing. Yeah, it's for what's the word I'm looking for? Make sure people don't steal from you. But part of the issue is, right, Gusto, for example, only integrates with Guideline, and they're not letting other TPAs into the system through the API. So if somebody could solve that problem of being able to transfer data from Gusto to the 401k provider, that would help a little bit, but there's still systems are super archaic. Yeah.
Got another conversation for another day. PTO, back to the benefit at hand here. We can't switch from benefit to benefit. This is only P benefits right now. So PTO. I don't know if I have any closing arguments on PTO, but I feel like this is a planned out in the beginning of the year. This is the minimum is planned. This is when you're going to take your trip, this vacation. People love to have something to look forward to. And if it's planned way ahead of time, then I think you're doing a service to them and they will greatly value that, because then it becomes like planned week of vacation, right? Isn't that like a good benefit?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point.
You're paying for it. You're only suggesting to pay for their vacations too.
Yeah, because we need to plan a lot more with what we do. And so that's a good idea, rather than expecting the employees to plan ahead. We should force them to plan ahead and say, hey, okay, it's March. Let's plan out for the rest of your vacation, or January, whenever it is. And then have everyone plan out as much as they can. Obviously, things are going to come up and they want to take a day off here and there. But if they can plan their big vacation chunks at different times, so not everyone's doing it at the same time, put it on the calendar, and then we can plan for it better.
Yeah. So planning, we dip back into planning after talking about PTO. So go back, and if you want to hear about planning, you can listen to our early planning tip. Yeah, I think that was a good summary, a good wrap up. Do we have any previews or anything else that we can, periodicals or the classifieds to talk about here at the end?
No, we're running out of P words.
Yeah, so
that's a problem.
If you're listening, that is not a problem, because our listeners can provide assistance with that. Reach out to us. Nicole's soon going to be on Twitter. You can make suggestions there. Tag us both with some tips, some P words that you might see. I think we're fine.
Do you know my Twitter name? What's my Twitter name?
The Nicole the CPA.
Super creative.
JJ the CPA. Nicole the CPA. No. Get deep in there. Peace out.
Later.
Wow, what a great episode. And wouldn't it be great if you could earn CPE credit for that? Now you can. Visit earmarkcpe.com to sign up for free and earn free CPE credit for listening to this show. That's earmarkcpe.com.
We should do porn, but somehow spin it so that it's appropriate.
So we can. It's a vertical. It's an industry vertical.
That's true.
Stay tuned. We can definitely talk about that one, because I've got clients in the porn vertical.
More than one client in the industry?
In the industry, I think we have 2. I would love to dive into that one a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a spinoff of, do you take clients that are in these questionable industries like pornography,
marijuana, cannabis, yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
Any of the vice industries, like even alcohol. Alcohol to a degree is a lot harder to manage, and we'll get in there. We'll get into industry verticals. We'll get deep in there.